When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Within the gaming world, there are your general gamers, but then there are those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming. If you're one of those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming, we certainly got the place to send you. Scorpion Lair Games. That's right, Scorpion Lair Games is the creators of the true crime hit Killers, the card game. Let's not forget they also have Killers Clothing Company, their profiler game, and things like the 5-Minute Murder channel on YouTube. And we certainly can't forget the new book that is certainly a hit, beyond the headliners, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Make sure you visit Jeff and the Scorpion Lair Games on Facebook and everywhere today.
This is Evan Ginzburg, associate producer of The Wrestler and 350 Days, and you are listening to Crazy Train Radio. You missed the birth of your mother and father. Don't you dare miss Crazy Train Radio.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, the Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, that used to annoy somebody we both know, but I do not care. My sandbox. But this next guest is coming back, I think for round 3 at least, is a senior editor for Pro Wrestling Stories and has been a contributing writer since 2017. He is also a published author with books like Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets that was released in January of 25. And he's got his newer book, which is out on Amazon, both Kindle and paperback versions, Grindhouse, Art House, and Wrestling Flicks. So this next guest also has dabbled in film, as he was an associate producer on the Oscar-nominated movie The Wrestler, and part of the acclaimed wrestling documentary 350 Days. Let's welcome back Mr. Evan Ginzburg.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Evan, how you been, sir?
I'm good for the most part. Thanks for having me back, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Uh, of course. You've been a great friend, great supporter since jump. Uh, early 2020, or excuse me, early 2012 when I got things going, which it's hard to believe it's going to be 14 years.
Yeah, the years fly
But
by.
yeah, don't it? And I was talking about it with somebody else the other night. But you've been a true friend, a confidant, and just you're not just for me, but you've been that for so many people. And I appreciate your friendship and advice and guidance and just everything you've provided over the years. So
Thanks so
thank you.
much. And I appreciate your support. And yeah, the wrestling community, it's too bad there's so much tribalism. Somebody disagrees with somebody, and next thing you know, they're at each other's throats. And wrestling is an art. And if you rate a match 5 stars and somebody else rates it 4 stars, it doesn't make them your mortal enemy. I see people spewing venom about Dave Meltzer all the time. I could watch an entire pay-per-view, not agree with the guy on one match. It doesn't mean he's my enemy. If he enjoys it more than I do, his time was better spent than mine. I mean, you know.
Yeah, it's funny. I was something similar, but not wrestling related. I was actually remembering a friend's passing the other day, and a mutual friend we kind of had a little bit of a disagreement on something, and it's like, hey, but I kind of had to. It's I guess a little bit of maturity. I wish others had, but it's like I sent him a text, hey, thinking about you on so and so's anniversary. Feel free to reach out because people get mad over the dumbest things, like you said, 5-star ratings or this or that. Like, why are we getting upset? There's more important things going on in the world than worry about how great a wrestling match was or whatever the case may be. It's like,
Well,
it,
we all have an expiration date, unfortunately, and you should really spend a lot more time. I hate to throw out cliches, but seize the day. Make every day like it's your last, because one day it will be. Nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks, hey, today I'm going to get into a car wreck or have a stroke or have a heart attack, and every day people do. So, not to put a dark cloud over the show, but enjoy yourself. And
yeah,
I used to debate politics all the time online. I don't do it anymore. If one person votes one way, another person votes another way, you're not going to change their mind. It doesn't even pay. You just get yourself all worked up and your blood pressure shoots up and, you know, whatever. I'll tell you, it's interesting. Getting back to wrestling, whenever you see a GoFundMe for a wrestler in need, who are the guys that contribute? Mick Foley, who's very left, and Chris Jericho, who leans right, I believe. So, these guys, although they vote differently, their hearts are in the right place. Anytime there's a wrestler, he's going to lose his house or needs to pay hospital bills or, God forbid, needs to be buried, these guys come through. So I don't care if they vote differently.
yeah. Like you just said, and we were kind of having this conversation before I hit the little button. And, at the end of the day, the heart's in the right place. And why do we need to debate the silly shit? So, like you said, guys like Foley and Jericho and all who've been blessed with what they've done career wise. And I would like to think we're smart with our funds. Like you said, try to help those who had needed it. So much respect to those guys.
I'll take it to another place. AEW leans left, WWE leans right. I watched both of their pay-per-views recently. I thought Reigns and Punk was a great, great match. I thought MJF and Kenny Omega was a great, great match. And I thought FTR against Cage and Cope was a great match. As a fan, I just want to see a great match. I don't care who the owners are voting for, or I just want to see great wrestling. So
Well, well, I was having this discussion with other fans, not on the show, but we were talking about what makes a great match. And I always said wrestling is tough with this because everybody has different opinions and stuff. And it's not like, what do you, like, say, team sports. Let's take professional baseball, for example. When they vote for, say, the Hall of Fame and things like that, and you say, or even if somebody's not a Hall of Fame, but they were a good player, you have things to look at, like batting average, pitching records, just the different statistics in baseball to look at when you're debating somebody's career and where they were. Professional wrestling isn't like that because you have the on one sense, you have what your booker or company owner asking you to do or not do. You know what I'm saying with wrestling. You don't have that
yeah,
statistic to
you don't have
go,
statistics, but wrestling is variations on a theme. If a Will Ospreay wrestles a Kenny Omega, that's a very different match than the original Sheik wrestling Abdullah the Butcher, where they're stabbing each other in the head.
yeah,
Okay. So, which is also very different from, let's say, a ladder match where guys are doing crazy spots. Like at WrestleMania, they had a very good ladder match. Javon Evans and all these guys. There were a half dozen guys, and it was very entertaining. But somebody could say, I'm not interested in guys falling off of ladders. Somebody else could say, I'm not interested in two massive guys stabbing each other with a fork or whatever. So it still involves caring. You have to care. Am I emotionally invested in this? Do I want to see a winner? It doesn't matter to me. I watch matches sometimes, which technically are fine, but if you're not emotionally invested, then it means almost nothing. It's like a movie. You could have a movie that's well acted, well shot, and if you don't care about the characters, then what's the point? So step one with wrestling is being emotionally invested one way or the other.
yeah. And like, I know you worked with many of the legends of the past, and some of them we both knew, like Nikolai Volkov and Lanny Poffo and different things. And it's funny because you hinted at it there with whether it's a ladder match or a Osprey and Omega and stuff. We could have a list. Both of us could book two different shows back to back of the same card, whether it's the legends or the current guys or a mixture of both. But you and me might book different shows.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
so it's not like you said, it's not the same.
I told somebody I could have booked a better match, a better show than night one of WrestleMania with all the wrestlers they didn't use, like Io Sky and Asuka, who were not in, formal matches over the 2 days. I could have booked a better show with talent they rejected. All those people that were in the Battle Royale on SmackDown, the Andre the Giant Battle Royale. You could have booked 6 or 7 matches just off of that talent and had a better show than night one of WrestleMania. Night two of WrestleMania, that was a quality show with a great, great main event. It was almost schizophrenic, like two different companies booked WrestleMania weekend. Night one was nothing much, and night two was memorable. That Reigns Punk match, 35 minutes. That was a tremendous match. Tremendous. No Usos running in, no Bloodline running in, no screw job finish, just two great athletes having a great match. It felt like it's two champions having a match that meant something, almost like a boxing match, like a heavyweight boxing match. It was, yeah, so sure, you could book a card, I could book a card, we'd book two totally different cards. And two people watching it would have two different reactions to it. It's very subjective wrestling, but I'll tell you one thing. I hear this, and I can test it every time I hear it. Somebody will go, everybody's entitled to their opinion. No. If somebody watches Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair and goes, that sucks, it's boring, then they don't have a reference point. They don't get it. Whoosh, over their heads. At some point, getting back to film, people will go, I can't watch a black and white movie. They're all boring. I can't watch a foreign movie with subtitles. They're all boring. No, you don't get it. It's over your head. Casting pearls to swine. I hear people say things like, I don't understand musicals. They just start singing and dancing. I go, well, then you don't get it. It doesn't mean it's not art because you don't appreciate it. So there is a reference point somewhere. If somebody watched, getting back to the tribalism. If an AEW fan hates WWE, or a WWE fan hates AEW, an AEW fan could watch Reigns and Punk and not want to enjoy it. Oh, that sucked. That's boring. Or a WWE fan could watch MJF and Kenny Omega. Oh, Kenny Omega, he's just a spot monkey. They don't get it. It's over their heads,
Absolutely. Well, we'll get back. Well, we can incorporate the wrestling here as well, but let's talk about the new book a little bit, the Grindhouse, Art House, and Wrestling Flicks. The
Sure.
book is packed with, hundreds of under the radar reviews from genre imaginable to having a roadmap to discovering your next favorite film and just everything in between. So, coming out of the book you released last year of Wrestling Rings and Blackboards, where did you start thinking about, okay, I want to make Grindhouse my next project?
Honestly, I just get like light bulbs. I just get like moments of inspiration. And on December 24th, I was like deathly ill. Either it was a stomach virus or food poisoning. I was just deathly ill. And it was like The Exorcist, speaking of movies, like stuff was coming out from everywhere. So I'm sitting at home for like a week after recovering. Then we're hit with 3 major snowstorms, and I'm just like, I have to keep myself occupied. It was like cabin fever. And I've always done these mini reviews. I just reviewed Dead Presidents today, the Hughes brothers. And I just love to review movies. I mean, not essay length generally, these mini reviews just to capture what the film is about and hopefully turn somebody on to seeing it. I want to see this film, especially an indie film, a low budget film, something under the radar. For example, I love the film Once. Have you ever seen the movie Once?
I have not, no.
It's about street musicians in Europe, and Glenn Hansard and the band, the Swell Season, they're actually acting in the film. They're musicians singing and playing and acting in this film. It was shot on $125,000. $125,000, which is nothing for a movie. So what happens? They win the Oscar for Best Song the year the film came out. Now, they're on the Oscars. A few years earlier, they were busking. They were playing in the street for change. Now they're on the Oscars. And they said, quote, create art, create art. And this film is so moving. I don't want to give any spoilers. It's the most unique romance you'll ever see. And when you see it, you'll understand why. It's just a beautiful, beautiful film. It's inspiring. It's almost a modern musical. Instead of just singing and dancing, you see them playing in the street. You see them recording in the studio, etc. You see them rehearsing in their apartments. They're starving musicians. So one scene to another inevitably leads to music, but it's not like West Side Story where they're singing and dancing on the streets of Manhattan. But it's an incredible film, and many, many, many people, even though they won Best Song, still haven't seen it. So I've told all my musician friends, you have to see this movie. One guy gets back to me and says, I cried my eyes out. They were just so moved by it. I cried my eyes out. There's another film that's deeply moving. I think it's the best film of this century. It's called Wendy and Lucy with Michelle Williams. And again, no spoilers, but she's broke, and all she has is a broken down old car and a dog. It's all she has to her name and a couple of bucks. And things go wrong. She's hanging by a thread with everything. And it's such a tremendous film. So Kelly Reichardt, female director, she's done about 20, 21, 22 films, all excellent. She's an indie filmmaker. She's not making big money. She teaches film at a college. This is what people don't understand about the arts. You could do a tremendous film, well reviewed, you have a named star like Michelle Williams in it, and you're not getting rich from it. We did The Wrestler. It was done on $6 million. That's not a lot of money, believe me. It sounds like a lot of money to the average person. But for a reference point, $6 million might be the food budget on a Marvel superhero movie, just to give you a reference point. Those movies are 200 million plus, to make. This was 6 million. So, we shot it on, we cut corners. We had very few extras. Most of those were real wrestling fans. I tell about the making of The Wrestler in both my books. So we would roll into an indie show and actually interrupt the show to shoot some footage. And we were at a Ring of Honor show one night, and they were getting angry. They wanted to watch wrestling. They didn't want to watch us. So Aronofsky actually gets on the mic, Darren Aronofsky, the director, and he goes, guys, just let me get one more quick take. We'll make you proud with this film, which eventually we did. But it was interesting, because it was like guerrilla filmmaking, in and out. Those wrestling fans didn't want us there. We were interrupting the flow of their show. And if you look at some of the scenes in The Wrestler, those are Ring of Honor crowds. You can see the Ring of Honor ring. It says clear as day, Ring of Honor. So we also shot at Jersey All Pro, which was a great promotion, Jersey All Pro Wrestling, and others. But it was a great experience. But again, I'm sure people have heard about Mickey's financial problems recently. He didn't get rich from The Wrestler. None of us did. It was a small indie film. So Mickey's real payoff for The Wrestler was all of a sudden he was hot again. He won the Golden Globe, Best Actor, and he was nominated for the Oscar for Best Actor. He lost to Sean Penn in Milk that year, 2008. But Mickey's real payoff was he was the heel in one of the Iron Man movies, and they gave him $1 million. That was his payoff for The Wrestler. He was hot again, so... but $1 million, after taxes and agents and everything else, it's a tough business, acting. Let's put it that way. The film business in general, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I know your dad, because of conversations we've had both on and off air over the years. Your dad was a cab driver. Was your mom a stay-at-home mom, or did mom work as well?
My mom was a receptionist for a law firm, and at one point they said to her, we want you to monitor how long everybody is in the bathroom. And if anybody's in the bathroom for more than 5 minutes, we want you to report them to us. And she says, I'm not doing that to my colleagues. I refuse to do that. And that was the end of that career. So, it's... the average person in the workforce, it is not easy. My father drove 14 to 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, and he was dead at 57. If anybody thinks driving all day is easy, it's not healthy. You're sucking in exhaust fumes. You can't get to the bathroom. You can't eat properly. It's try parking in Manhattan. It's It's not easy, not easy.
Well, the reason I was bringing this up is where did the appreciation for the arts come from? Was it mom, dad, or both?
Both, both. My mother in the 19, and I tell some of these stories in the book, my wrestling rings, blackboards, and movie sets. My mother in the 50s, she would go up to the Apollo Theater in Harlem, her and her girlfriend Sonny, and her friend Sonny was an actress. And they would see all the great gospel acts. They were the only white people in there. And my mother was Jewish, but she loved gospel music because gospel is basically the cousin of R&B, just like hip hop is the cousin of R&B. It's all branches on the same tree. So when people start screaming about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, this guy's not a rocker, you know, rock and roll came from R&B, you know,
Yeah.
if anybody really understands music. But anyway, so my mother loved music. She saw all the legends. She met the legends. She saw pretty much everybody. She loved jazz. She loved rhythm and blues. She loved gospel, and my father also. So as a kid, they would take me to concerts, and as a kid, I didn't quite understand jazz yet. I didn't quite get it because, my ear, it's a language and you have to understand it. So one day my dad takes me to see a jazz singer playing in the street, an outdoor concert. His name was Eddie Jefferson, jazz vocalese. He was a big inspiration to Manhattan Transfer, just so you understand the kind of music that he was singing. It was a lot of scat and its own language, creating words to songs that had no words prior is the best way I could explain vocalese to the layman.
Exactly.
And I'm a layman, I'm not a musician. So to make a long story short, and I tell this story in the book. I'm there listening to this tremendously talented, unique, charismatic singer singing jazz, and suddenly I got it. It was like my ears opened up, my brain, the switch in my brain. I was a teenager. The switch in my brain turned on, and I understood it. And I said, "This is great. This is great." So next time that I saw a Sarah Vaughan or a Mel Torme or whoever it may be, I got it. I understood it. It's a language. And I was always grateful to my parents. And I tell this to any parent, take your kid by the hand and take them to a concert, a museum, a movie. Movie theaters are empty these days for the most part. Take your kid to the movies and to see something worthwhile. There's beautiful animated films for kids, that adults can appreciate also. It doesn't have to be just silly, pop culture stuff. Some of these, Japanese animated films are incredible, just works of art. And even like old Disney films like Fantasia, just beautiful. And even some of the modern stuff when it's not too commercial. But parents should expose their kids to the arts because otherwise they're going to sit home and just blow stuff up playing video games, bang, 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 boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
They have to be introduced to it. Otherwise they don't get it.
exactly. Speaking of animated films, over the past couple of months, I just recently took my niece and nephew to some movies. I said, "Hey, let's go." Jump in a car and we go, and they had fun with it. And it's like you said, you got to expose them to stuff. So
Yeah. I in the thank yous in the book, I actually wrote thank you to my parents for the good ears because they introduced me to great music. They took me to see the Spinners, one of the great R&B acts of all time. It just like blew me away. And Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers with the Marsalis brothers. And, it's like the average parent didn't do that. And it meant, to this day, I mean, I'm going to see Darlene Love tomorrow, one of the great R&B singers. She's been on Letterman a million times, and I just love music, all genres of music. If there's only two kinds of music, good music and bad music.
Yeah.
It's when everybody starts with the categories, it's a shame because you know a great musician is a great musician.
And, that's why I loved over the years having and I'm sure you've heard of him, the DJ Pierre Robert, who passed away last year or earlier this year from Philadelphia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we would occasionally run into each other and talk music over a cocktail or two at different events and things. And it would be, Pierre was so open to anybody who knew, well, I should say, anybody who knew of Pierre knew he was an open box to music in terms of it, like you said, the key word was categorize. It wasn't just rock or hip hop or this. He would talk about, and you can have a deep conversation about the branches of, you have your main base and the branches, then you have the sub branches of, hey, well, this led to gospel, this led to this,
Oh
and
yeah,
that. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. If you know your history, when people say hip hop is not music, I'm like, watch Diggable Planets. They're playing instruments. How is
yeah.
it not music? It's absurd. You know, Let me put it this way. I have a friend, he's an expert on disco, and disco has a bad reputation, but disco is also a cousin to R&B. There was horrible disco like Disco Duck, and there was classic disco like any other genre. There but for the grace of God go I, Machine. That's a profound song. Just because it has a beat to it doesn't mean it's garbage. There's a band, Dr. Bizarre's original Savannah band. They did Cherchez La Femme. And incredible, unique album that 50 plus years later stands the test of time. Just because it has a disco label, Chic, Nile Rodgers and Chic. Anybody that understands music knows how great Nile Rodgers is. He played with Bowie, he played with everybody, he produced everybody. Nile Rodgers and Chic. You could label it disco, but it's R&B or it's just plain great music. What's the difference with the category? It's is there crap disco also? Yeah, just like there's crap any genre of music.
Hmm.
That's the way it works. To discard an entire genre of music with millions of records because you don't appreciate it. I mean, I'm not big on modern country music, but that doesn't mean it's that. What does that mean? I mean, I'll listen to a Hank Williams or a Patsy Cline or even a Jerry Lee Lewis playing country. It's like you could have preferences, but you can't dismiss an entire genre, even if it's not your
Absolutely.
preference.
Absolutely. And I have a friend who's a known singer, songwriter, and performer in country music. And we talk multiple times a week and at least twice a week. And it's like his, I guess you would say, heyday was in the 90s, with a lot of his stuff. But when he performs in person or in concert, he's also doing Billy Joel. He's doing, Jerry Lee Lewis. He's bringing these
Great
other,
musician's a great musician. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
to introduce to the younger audience and stuff. But with your father for a second, I want to bring this up because I just recently heard this. You actually introduced him to professional wrestling, correct? By
Yeah.
saying by saying, "Hey, Dad, let's go to shows at the Garden or here to."
Exactly. So my father was an all-city basketball player, and he loved the champion 69 and 73 Knicks, and he would take me as a kid. And it was glorious to see the Knicks that era live. They were amazing. And it was electric at the Garden. And we started watching wrestling on TV. I discovered it one day. I tell this story in my book. It's a rainy, nasty day. I'm fiddling with the mysterious UHF dial. UHF, this is how far back this goes. And I'm going through all these channels. Some were in English, a lot of them were PBS, and all of a sudden I see this massive guy, 300 plus pounds, and he's pounding on this Indian. And it's Chief Jay Strongbow. I didn't even know what it was. It was pro wrestling. It was pro wrestling. And all of a sudden, Chief Jay Strongbow, this is 1972. He's doing this herky-jerky war dance. And he starts chopping down this guy that towered over him. And he pins the guy. And I'm a kid. My mouth is hanging open. Like, oh my God, this is great.
What did I just watch?
Yeah. So I watched the rest of the show, and I'm watching the promos, and these colorful, charismatic guys are coming on. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to get you at the Garden. They're cutting promos for Madison Square Garden. So I started watching religiously, and then I started watching the LA tapings on the UHF dial from the Olympic Auditorium. Then I started watching the Florida tapings on the UHF dial with Gordon Soley. And finally, I'm like, Dad, please take me to Madison Square Garden, and you had to be 14 years old to be allowed in, because in the 50s, Dick the Bruiser started a riot at the Garden, an actual riot. So they didn't want kids in there. It was a tough blue collar crowd. So my dad takes me to Madison Square Garden. June 24, 1974. I could tell you the day. That's how it's etched in my brain forever. And I walk into the Garden. And this is in my book also. I walk into the Garden. The first thought that goes through my head, wow, it's in color. It's in color. Because we had a black and white TV. And it was like Darth landing in Oz. Like, wow, look at this. And there's Killer Kowalski and Nikolai Volkov and the Valiant Brothers and Bruno and Pedro. And, I'm a kid. These are like Marvel superheroes and supervillains. Nikolai used to get on TV, and his manager was Fred Blassie, who had charisma off the charts. And Blassie would go, squeeze, Nikolai, squeeze. And he would take an apple and it would explode into the camera. I'm a kid. I'm watching this. It's like Superman and Lex Luthor. It's like Batman and the Joker, superheroes and supervillains. And I'm sitting there, and the Valiant Brothers and Dean Ho and Tony Gurria go 2 out of 3 bloody falls, 45 minutes. The main event was Nikolai and Blassie against Bruno and Strongbow. And I'm hooked forever. I'm like, that's it. It was magic.
Was he stealing the Danny Hodge gimmick with the apples and the pliers and stuff like that?
Nikolai would explode apples on screen, and it was no joke. That's the kind of power he had. So yeah, Danny Hodge was famous for his grip also. But yeah, man, it was really something as a kid to experience this. And so my father would take me, and it was a sacrifice, because he was a taxi driver. He'd drive all day. Then he'd drive back to Queens to get me, and then back to Manhattan to take me, and then back to, it wasn't, but he learned to love it. He learned to love it. And he had a great sense of humor. His tombstone reads, he made people laugh. That's exactly what it says on my father's tombstone. So he loved guys like Lou Albano and the Valiant Brothers and John Tolos on the LA tapings, because they were funny. You wanted to murder them, but they were funny. And that was a great heel back then. John Tolos, he comes into the Garden to wrestle Bruno because he was hot on LA TV, and we got it in New York. So he's on TV cutting promos, and he goes, I'm gonna get you, you spaghetti bender, because Bruno was Italian. Spaghetti bender. This was like hot stuff in 1974 or five. You understand?
Yeah,
Spaghetti.
I know.
Yeah. So everybody wanted to murder Tolos because he was doing ethnic slurs at Bruno, who was like a god to us. And man, it was really something. And what people don't understand when they go, oh, Bruno just punched and kicked. Pedro just punched and kicked. You see, they don't understand the audience. We 80% of us were marks. We thought it was real, okay? And our parents, like my father, was a World War II veteran. You know, this was do the math. This is mid 70s. In the mid 40s, these guys were overseas fighting the men in the audience, a lot of them. They were in World War II. There's Waldo von Erich. There's Baron von Raschke. There's Hans Schroeder. You know, they're all doing Nazi gimmicks. Okay?
So,
And then you got the Russian gimmicks. It's the Cold War. James Bond's always fighting, you know, the Russian villains from Russia with Love, you know. So
or the Japanese villains
or the
and all that.
Japanese villains from World War II, Tanaka and Fuji, and you know who ironically Tanaka wasn't even Japanese; he was Hawaiian, you know. But the point being, we believed, and you know, it was very clear, face versus heel. There were no tweeners, and I mean, when Billy Graham came along, and even the Valiants to a degree, they were cool heels, and part of us liked them, but we were still rooting for the faces. You know, it was a different time. It was a different time. Yeah.
It's funny that you dropped Fuji's name, and people, you'll get this where I'm going with this because you know the stories and everything like I do, and have gotten to know some of the guys over the years of those previous generations. But I was actually telling a Fuji story because Fuji, for those who don't know, could be a vicious ribber and all that stuff. And I was telling the story I heard The Undertaker recently tell. It was early in his career, for the WWF at the time. And obviously Fuji was still there. And so they're sitting at the hotel bar having a cocktail and whatnot. And Fuji said, "Hey, come over." He was one of those guys like Andre. He either liked you or he didn't. So Taker goes over and they're sitting and just like you do at the bar, sitting, talking, having their drinks and all. And there was no names were mentioned. To protect the innocent, let's say. So apparently Fuji didn't like this other guy and would be vicious to him. And he looks over at Taker and goes, "Watch this." Guy comes over. He starts blowing his ego because they were doing TV. So it was 3 matches, all that stuff. And he's like, "Yeah," guy's like blowing up like a peacock. "Oh yeah, thanks, Uncle Harry. Thanks." What he didn't realize, Taker goes, "Okay, why'd you blow him up?" "I was blowing him up so he wouldn't pay attention. I was pissing on his leg."
Yeah. Yeah.
So Fuji was a different breed in those guys.
Yeah. You know, guys like Lanny Poffo, who were friends of mine and who were sane,
Which is hard to find.
Yeah, they didn't like the vicious ribs. They didn't like some guy took a dump in somebody's bag or whatnot.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so there's a line. There's a line.
Yeah.
But there are harmless ribs, and I mean, there was a famous rib where they took a dump, not WWF down south. The guys took a dump into, and they mixed it into a guy's cigar, and he was smoking it, and the guy's like, "This tastes like shit," and literally
there was one in Portland like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I forget the promoter, but it was so
Don Owens' brother.
Yeah, I think so. So, but my point being, it's to me there's lines, but I'm not a wrestler, so what can I tell you?
And I always used to say the same thing to Lanny when we would communicate. But I don't think I ever talked on or spoke to him about this. How in the hell did he stay sane with all the craziness around him, especially of his era?
Well, I'll tell you, I was very close with Lanny. Lanny would crash by me, sleep on my couch. I would book him as an agent. I tell a lot of agent stories in my book. And Lanny would say to me, the match would be over. I'd go back to my motel, back to my hotel. I was trying to save my money. Nothing good came of drinking and drugging, and he wasn't part of that whole scene. That's how he stayed sane. And he retired. He had a lot of money, which not a lot. Retired or semi-retired. He was still doing autograph appearances, but he had stopped wrestling. He died at age 68. But yeah, basically he left the business well, and a lot of these guys did not. Mr. Fuji was ripping tickets in a movie theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Fuji was a headliner. He headlined Madison Square Garden. People don't go back that far, but I do. Fuji and Tanaka were headlined Madison Square Garden. Fuji solo headlined the Garden against Morales when Morales was champ. So people forget how big some of these stars were, but people also don't realize they never broke 100 grand back then.
Yep.
Johnny
Valiant and all those guys.
Johnny Valiant said to me, I never broke 100 grand in wrestling. They were the number one tag team in the world, the Valiant brothers in the 70s. People don't. There were a few exceptions. The champions, of course. Bruno made 250 grand in the 70s. That was a lot of money back then. And the touring guys like Dusty and Andre, they broke 100 grand certainly, but a lot of guys never did. And today, I'm seeing articles literally today on social media where the TKO executives are making 23 million a year, 24 million a year, and more, hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts for the and benefits and bonuses for the TKO executives, and you still have legends and pioneers dying penniless, trying to pay hospital bills, trying to save their house, or God forbid, trying to be buried. I mean, how about starting a little fund? Take half of 1% of the massive profits for GoFundMe's, or just a fund to help these guys, because your legends and pioneers shouldn't go out like that. It's disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. Triple H and Stephanie are worth 400 million allegedly. It's reported publicly. Let's say it's wrong and they're only worth 200 million or 100 million. How do you let your peers go out like that? Come on.
Obviously, the other argument financially is the 1099 status of when you're working for these companies, AEW, WWE, etc. Do you think somebody will ever beat that claim? Because I know there were lawsuits before for it, but also with that, since you said and have said previously, working as a wrestling agent for some of these guys in the past, how does one find their value, would you say?
Let's put it this way. A New York City school teacher is contracted to a 180-day school year.
Yeah.
180 days. And you have sick days and personal days on top of that. You're considered a full-time employee with benefits, with pension, with investment plans, etc., so on. You see this cap here?
Yeah.
The NWA champions, our documentary, 350 Days, the NWA champs wrestled literally 350 days a year. That's double what a school teacher did. Okay? The WWF stars back in the 80s, when we did this movie, Bret Hart said he wrestled 230 days, excuse me, 330 days a year. 330 days a year as world champion. Greg Valentine said to me he wrestled 320 days a year. Said face to face, he said this to me. I'm not reading this off some website. 320 days. He was the Intercontinental Champion. He was working constantly. How are you not an employee year after year after year after year, where there's no benefits, no pension, no nothing? I mean, so I think with the right lawyer, it's a little different if you're the Undertaker. Excuse me, if you're Brock Lesnar and you've wrestled 22 times this decade and you wrestled one time this year, I could see arguing, you know, you're a freelancer, you're not a full-time employee. I could see that. But if you wrestled hundreds and hundreds of days a year, back in the 80s, back in the 90s, back in the 2000s, how are you not an employee?
And
I
think
think
factor in the travel too. Think about that those guys would do.
Barry Windham said the reason he left WWE, he said he wrestled, I believe it was 89 straight consecutive days. 89 straight days. So, and back then it wasn't like, okay, we're going to go from New York tonight to Philly tomorrow to Boston the next day. They were crisscrossing continents. It was crazy. They were going from, you know, America to Europe to Japan. You know, there was no rhyme or reason to it for the most part. So it's a insane lifestyle, and a lot of them literally didn't survive it. There's a mile-long trail of guys who died young from this. And what people tend to forget is they wrestled hurt. They wrestled hurt. They were scared of losing their spot, so they're taking painkillers. You know, they're just tying up whatever's broken or injured or sprained and getting right back in the ring. And it was a brutal. I mean, things are better today. It's a much lighter schedule. You know, it's far better. They said LA Knight wrestled 77 days last year, and that was considered a lot for WWE because they cut out the house shows. So 77 days is a lot different than 277 days, you know?
Absolutely. Well, final question for you, and I want to go back towards the newer book, Grindhouse, Art House, and Wrestling Flicks. And you to also discuss about different guys in the wrestling business. You know, you got Andre, you got Roddy Piper, Dwayne Johnson, Hogan. You know, you just go George the Animal Steel. You can throw in there because he did the Ed Wood movie. And
at this point, there's dozens and dozens.
Yeah,
of
but guys and gals make the transition from wrestling into acting over the years. So, who do you think really stands out for actors making that transition?
The best actor of the bunch to me is Batista. He and I was never a big fan of him as a wrestler, so I have no bias. There's a film called The Last Showgirl, and what his role is just heart-wrenching, real powerful. The guy's an actor, and he was smart enough where he bulked down. You know, he's 57 years old now, I believe. So he's like, you have a limitation on how long you could be an action star. You know, it's like you're in your late 50s. He said, I want to be an actor, not just you know, an action star. And I'll tell you, Dwayne Johnson. In my book, I reviewed The Smashing Machine. That was a hell of a performance.
It was.
So he can act. Unfortunately, for a quarter century, he did a mountain of popcorn films, and you reach a point where people only think of you as an action star because The Smashing Machine bombed. It just bombed. I saw it in theater. There were 6 people in there. And so you did too, so you know I'm not lying. But it was a shame because it was a great performance, and that guy, like Richard Pryor, he eviscerated himself. I mean, that was a brutal thing to watch. And but yeah, I would say Batista number one. Hopefully, Dwayne Johnson will continue to make quality dramas and not just popcorn films. And there are guys, Cena's hit and miss because he'll do anything for a paycheck, frankly. A lot of his films are crap and others are better. So you hope at some point he'll be more choosy and not go the Dwayne Johnson route with just commercial, mediocre films for the most part. And yeah, I would definitely at this point say Batista.
Oh, and maybe I'm biased here, but I always liked, and yes, I even got some enjoyment of Hell Goes to Frogtown or whatever it was called with Piper. But Piper was pretty good as an actor in certain cases.
And I cover They Live in my book, and John Carpenter raved about Piper as an actor. But again, Piper, made a lot of mediocre films. He's better than the films he was in for the most part. And you reach a point, you're trying to support your family through your acting. The wrestling is past already, and you're picking and you're basically taking the work that's offered to you. And sometimes it's not great. There's guys like Eric Roberts who will do pretty much anything if they give him his price, his day rate, because you need to pay the bills, you need to pay the mortgage, you need to work. And James Caan at the end, if you gave James, for example, if you gave James Caan 50 grand, he would do your movie. One of the, biggest movie stars in the world 20 or 30 years prior. But at the end of his career, he was on the downside of his career. Hey, I'll come out and do a day for your movie for 50 grand. And, James Caan in, your little indie film. And there's a lot of guys, you give them their day rate. I sat with Darren Aronofsky when we were working on The Wrestler, and he had all these actors on index cards, name and price. And he's juggling them, and he's going, Evan, you could get 2 TV stars for the price of 1 movie star. Because you're trying to budget a low budget film, and you're trying to cast the right people, the named people with a price that's affordable. And I met Nicolas Cage one night. We were thinking we couldn't get the funding off of Mickey's name. I have that story in my book. Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets. I meet up with Nicolas Cage, sweetest guy in the world, down to earth, hell of a guy. I take him backstage to Ring of Honor at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York, and he's taking pictures with everybody. He's posing with everybody. Couldn't be any nicer. And so at one point he turns to me, he goes, Evan, is this real like UFC? He didn't even know what he was watching. So Aronofsky says to me one day, Evan, I love Nick. He's a great guy. He's a great talent. At that time, 2006, 2007, one of the biggest box office stars in the world, far bigger than Mickey Rourke. But he said to me, Evan, Nick is like a walking corporation. There's the agent, the manager, the hairdresser, it's like a walking corporation. He says, Mickey's simple. He's got his one buddy there that helps him. And it's an interesting business when you see it from the inside, and a lot of it.
And the business within the business too, yeah.
Yeah. I sat at funding meetings with them, and Darren's going, "I'd like 18 million," and they're going, "We could give you 6 million." That's a third. That's a different movie, That's so. At one point, I'll leave you with this. This is the most important point. Darren looks at me and he goes, Mickey's the right guy. Mickey's the right guy. Doesn't matter that Nick was a bigger star. Mickey looked beaten down. Mickey looked like he'd been to hell and back. He was top box office in the 80s. He left acting to get punched in the face as a boxer. This is absolutely unheard of. As an actor, you're protecting your face. You're doing everything you can not to age. I saw a couple of weeks ago, I saw the last Mission Impossible movie. Tom Cruise is 62. He looks 42. This guy's got the best hairdresser, the best makeup, the best everything. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
The job as a box office matinee star, matinee idol, sex symbol, whatever, action star, is to protect your looks. Mickey Rourke's getting punched in the face in the prime of his acting career. He's a tortured artist, but an artist. What a great actor. I was sitting at the New York Film Festival, Lincoln Center, 2,300 seats, sold out, $40 a ticket. We're screening The Wrestler. And I'm telling you, the scene where he says to his daughter, when Randy the Ram says to his daughter, I'm just a broken down piece of meat. I looked around me. Everybody's crying. Everybody's crying. And I knew right there, I said, this movie works. You can't fake this. These people, I'm looking around, they're wiping tears, and that is going to be one of the iconic lines in film history. Just like Brando and On the Waterfront, I could have been a contender. I'm Randy the Ram. I'm just a broken down piece of meat, and I don't want you to hate me. Wow. So, a friend of mine says to me, I acted with him in that movie. We improv'd it. Yep. Aronofsky just threw us in, and I never acted in my life. I never so much as like in high school, nothing. So Darren gets a smirk. He goes, Evan, come here. And I go, yeah. He says, walk around the room, walk up to Mickey last, ask him for an autograph and a Polaroid. I have no makeup on. I have street clothes like this. So Mickey comes over, whispers in my ear, very casually, goes, just improv it. Just improv it. I've never acted. Okay? So I do exactly what they tell me. There's probably 125 people there, giant cameras in my face. I walk up to, the whole time I'm thinking, what am I going to say to this guy? I'm improving. So I said, what would I say to a legendary wrestler? So I said, I loved you as a kid. I used to see you at the Garden, Madison Square Garden. Can I have your autograph? And he's improving, and he looks at me and he goes, what's your name? And I'm thinking for a second, and just instinctively I go, Evan. How surreal this is. I'm playing myself in a fictional movie. How utterly surreal this is. So anyway, a friend of mine said to me, quote, an educator, a sharp guy, he says to me, that was Aronofsky's gift to you. That's a little piece of immortality that'll be there forever. 100 years from now, 200 years from now, people will watch that movie because of Mickey's performance, because it's that great a performance. They'll watch that movie and there you'll be, playing yourself no less. So that was a gift to me. And again, we didn't get rich from it. We got paid, but we didn't get rich from it. But that meant more to me than anything. You could see that in the trailer. 5 million people watched the trailer alone. So, I'm very proud of everything that I've worked on. And, not just The Wrestler. 350 Days is from the heart. The books are from the heart. I don't want to churn out content. You go on social media, there's content. There's the young guys with the six-pack of abs and the young women with the cleavage. It's content. It's meaningless. 95 out of 100 WWE movies are content. Got Ted DiBiase Jr. with a gun. Who cares, really?
Yeah.
It's content. But if you're going to create, like they said in the movie once, like I said before, create art. create art, really.
Yeah, speaking of content, and I'll wrap with this because I haven't obviously heard first for a couple different reasons. Uh, are you still working on a Tollus book?
Yes, yes, with Dr. Mike Lano. And that's another thing. Books done right take time. Yeah, we love Tollus. Mike was a pallbearer at Tollus's funeral. That's how well he knew him. He was asked to be a pallbearer, and he said he was very disturbed to see John looking like that because John was a regular sized guy. He was not a big muscle guy. He was not a huge, you know, John was an in shape, tanned, regular looking guy, and you know, when he got sick and he did, at the end, he didn't look like himself, unfortunately. But yeah, we're working on that. I basically want to teach, write, and make films, as long as I can. And there are people that have directed movies. Hey, Clint Eastwood's 95. He's still directing and acting in movies. There's no time limit if you have the skills and the drive and you're mentally and physically able. At some point you might not be. But yeah, I just want to do one quality project after another until I can't anymore. And the Tollus book is definitely going to happen at some point. It's just, part of it is Mike was very attached to John, so he wants to do it right. He hone it, hone it, hone it. This is what's wrong with a lot of movies today. I'm watching one movie after another. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes. That last Mission Impossible movie was almost 3 hours, 2 hours and 50 minutes. It was endless. It was endless. At some point, you have to edit things down where it just doesn't go on forever. It works against you sometimes. So, so my favorite book is The House on Mango Street, Sandra Cisneros, and it short story collection based on real people. Some of the stories are a half page, 1 page, 2, 3, 4 pages. And I write like her. You don't need a 700-page book if you could tell the story in less. As a writing major, they always taught us, cut, be ruthless, cut, tighten. So that's a long-winded way of saying, yes, we're going to get that book done at some point. Yes.
Yeah. And like you said, I can understand why Mike would want to, make it the best project, and yourself the best project possible.
Well, he was one of my wrestling heroes. I mean, I didn't know him personally. I met him, I've interviewed him, but I did not. I can't say he was my friend, but he was one of my heroes. So you want to do good by him. It's
exactly.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is I have heroes like Muhammad Ali, and there's been 50 books on the same guy, and some are much better than others. So you could do a great book, a good book, a mediocre book, a horrible book. So, you want to do it right.
And folks, I will have links to go check out 350 Days. Check out The Wrestler. Check out the 2 books we talked about here with Evan on Amazon. Yeah, as I always say, please support the independent authors and writers and everybody the musicians, and because not everybody's making millions of dollars, but they put out quality work.
I see noted jazz and blues musicians. They're on the road. One gig gets canceled, and that's the difference between making money and losing money. It's so tight, all of it. You're on the road with a full band, and everybody needs to get paid, but you're not a superstar. You're playing in a small venue. It's very tough. So whenever I go to a concert, I try to buy some merch or whatever, support the band, support indie everything, indie wrestling. I mean, WWE was at Madison Square Garden. The cheapest ticket was $122 in the nosebleeds. Imagine a mom and father taking two kids. You got $500 just in tickets before you walk in the door.
Yeah, and then your parking and your food and your gimmicks and it's
It's a
how many people can do
$1,000
it?
night. Yeah. See, the garden used to be 12 to 14 cards a year. Now it's 3, 4, 5 cards a year because people just can't afford it anymore. It's a whole different experience. I mean, so you go to some mom and pop indie, it's 15, 20, $25. You're meeting the wrestlers, you're getting autographs, you're taking pictures. It's a different experience. And one day you could say, I saw them when? I saw MJF on indies. I saw a lot of these guys on little indie mom and pop shows back in the day. I saw Foley on indies back when he was sleeping in his car and making $50 a night. It's yeah, man, it's an interesting business. So you be up close and personal, and you meet some of these people. And 5 years from now, they'll be in WWE or AEW or whatever.
Absolutely. Evan, thank you so much as always.
Thank you. I appreciate the support as always. Thanks so much, Jonathan.
Hey folks, looking for the ultimate destination for the nerd enthusiasts and collectors? Well, we found the spot for you. Nerds Nest Collectibles is a haven for nerds, geeks, and fans alike, as they have many different products and certainly more to come. Make sure you go ahead and visit them at nerdsnestcollectibles.com. Check them out.
This is Vicky Guerrero, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.